Niko Moreno, what is up?
Hey, what's going on, John? SDH family, happy to be on.
Hmm.
Lots to talk about. We just had some, you could say, exciting couple of games yesterday. It was at least feisty on one end, a little bit of what we were expected on the other. But it was good. It's been a busy week for sure, and just excited to be on.
So drop your knowledge of what happened last topic.
Well, where should we start? Should we start in the East?
Oh yeah, they were the first one to kick off, brother.
Man, I mean, I don't know who's shocked that Charlotte just kind of laid down and took it. They've been the definition of inconsistency, and I don't like to use the word mediocrity, but pretty close to it. Just let's just kind of get there. Even that last game, both games actually against Miami, uh, I said here that I don't know if they deserve that 2-2 draw, and then in the second one, Kalina saves them, and he becomes the hero of the story, at least to get them to the next step, the next game, and then the Red Bulls just dominated them, and I couldn't believe the score line because I was like, do the Red Bulls really have 5 goals in them? And they really did. I think Tolkien's been very interesting, man. He's a guy that um, has really put on this character of being I don't know, Captain Red Bull, and whether it's through the interviews or his play and his little dances and taking PKs. Yesterday with the free kick, the 2 assists he had. I mean, he's just been outstanding for the Red Bulls. That true to their form, true to their system. I think yesterday they got some maybe unexpected goals or goals that weren't coming in during the season, but that's what happens when you get in form, and it makes you a dangerous team when things are away, and then all of a sudden you get some momentum. You start believing in those players, and they get a big score line.
Then the other game. It's kind of like in March Madness, where you have the one game or the one day where the lower seeds win. Then the other days, chalk and bold. That's what you ended up with in game two.
Absolutely. Well, San Jose and Sporting Kansas City, I think that the thing we were all looking for was who was going to play San Luis. Because if San Jose went through, I don't think anybody would have been excited. Maybe San Luis fans, City fans, knowing that they get a rather more accessible or easier team. Because now the rivalry's on, and we'll talk about that in a second. But going back to the game, I thought Sporting Kansas City wanted it more. I thought Sporting Kansas City was more physical. I thought that they created more at a run of play. They seemed to generate more chances or put the ball in prime scoring positions. We're seeing vintage Russell in every sense. I try to think back on that defeated Russell that was saying, I don't know how we're going to get out of this when things were going bad for Sporting Kansas City. And that's not the man you saw yesterday. That's not the man you've seen in the last couple of games. At the defensively, they were so solid. I think that the little things that Eric Quicks wanted to do ran through Espinoza at one end, and they weren't easy for him. From both Tommy being the first guy to shove him, press him, push him out wider, or not let him get the ball, all the way back to the left back who did a fantastic job on him. And then on the other side, Davis on Hopi. I mean, that was just a great battle. And Davis, he just locked down that side. So San Jose wanted to get wide. They wanted to try something, but Sporting Kansas City just wanted it more all around. I was surprised that he went to PKs because Kansas City was creating chance after chance after chance. And I think there's one time where Rodriguez even blocks a shot that had already got past the keeper. And obviously credit to the defender for being in that position. But Sporting Kansas City was just a better team. Then you go to PKs. And as soon as you went to PKs, I thought Sporting Kansas City had the edge simply because you got a guy like Milia that's been there, done that, good at PKs. You got the leadership role. You saw it right from the start. Russell, he puts that first PK away, and he's in the face of the players, and he's going. And so you kind of saw the confidence going towards Sporting Kansas City, and then they win it. Polito, not sure what he was thinking with that PK technique. If you're going to hold up, if you're going to do the slow and easy and you're going to put it down the middle, you better be real sure of where the keeper is. He allows Milia to just kind of stick his foot out there. Not Milia, I'm sorry, but Daniel to stick his foot out there. But still, Sporting Kansas City gets through. They do their happy dance, and now we go to St. Louis, where it'll be exciting to see them play in Blue Hell and then back and forth. I still like St. Louis, though.
Do you like the best of three?
Oh, man, that's a tough one, man, because it's so unusual, unnatural for soccer. I'm going to say no. I like the two legs or the one and done. So do one or the other. Don't, try to make fetch happen. Don't try to just make something that's not really there happen, because you do want the extra game and you do want more of those ratings going through the roofs. And I get it. I mean, that's part of the business, but I personally don't like it. I think it should be either the two leg or one and done. Take your pick.
All right. So then this week stopping up and we see leg once across the board.
Say it again. I'm sorry.
How do you think that leg one is going to be this weekend? What are you looking at this weekend?
Yeah, no, that'll be interesting. Because it could go one of two ways, right? It could be a learning curve wise, where you're going to go out there and not want to lose the entire series right off the bat in terms of momentum, and you want to maybe analyze the opponent, and you're going to be more conservative, and you're going to have the teams that are going to park the bus, and you're going to have the teams that are going to want to see it that way, or you might get the opposite, where you just go all in. So the approach over this first 90 minutes, I'm interested in seeing. If it was me, I'd go for it. I try to catch a team that has been waiting to play, and whether they have momentum or not, I want to be the protagonist. I want to be the one that puts you on your heels. But it'll be interesting, right? I mean, when you look at Sporting Kansas City and Red Bulls, that's a tougher matchup than maybe people think, right? Because of the way Red Bulls play. I think that they're going to be comfortable. We're playing with house money. We made it where nobody thought that we were going to make it. In Tolkien's words, the haters didn't even expect us to be here, and now we are. Now we're playing the best team in the East. They have the pressure. They're the best team in the league. They have the pressure. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to park the bus. I'm going to make them come at me, and I'm going to be transitional. I'm going to be on the ball and try to either win it at PKs, or I'm going to make it uncomfortable enough where one mistake is going to count the game. But I do see some of these home teams maybe wanting to set the tempo right off the bat, so they don't have to depend on that second game and that third game as much. The Philadelphia Revolution game is interesting for me as well. I think in that first game, you will see where it lays out, because New England, as inconsistent as they've been, they kind of put a couple of real nice performances here at the end. So can they hold on to that? Can they push the momentum? I don't see it. I think Philadelphia will do the trick, will do the job. But again, Philadelphia in the playoffs has let me down many a times, whether it's juice boxes or just with you here on your show. So there's some interesting matchups.
What's the most interesting one for you?
Ooh, the most interesting one. There's a couple, man. So I think the Columbus Crew Atlanta is a real good one. And I think you guys have the best matchups. They just put that out there, right? I mean, you bring the West Coast perspective, but the good games are on your side, man. I mean, that's what the good games are at. I mean, if you really think about it, and we'll go into the West a little bit, but This Columbus Atlanta is a good one, right? What happens and how does Gonzalo Pineda plan for not having Almada, who I don't know, lost his marbles and does a David Beckham type of thing. I'm kidding. And just kicks this guy as he walks away and all this, gets the red card. So puts him in a little bit of a disadvantage. But it's going to be an attacking-minded 3-game stretch, right? I mean, Columbus only plays one way. I think Atlanta has found their rhythm, and with Sava and Silva, I mean, they've really I think put together a cohesive unit that it's quick, that is dangerous, that can be explosive, that can win games. But Atlanta has had letdowns on defense, but so has Columbus, right? So I'm really interested in how that plays out. I want to see Kucha's form. I want to see Almada once he gets on this, game and on this 3-game stretch, how he's going to play out. So I think that's the most interesting one for me. That's the one I don't want to miss. I think Nashville, Columbus, strategically will be interesting. Gary Smith and this Nashville team have not been good in the final stretch. They've looked out of sorts. They can't really generate. They've had some injuries. What happens with Leal? What happens with Shuttleworth? Can Mukhtar hold the load as he always does? And on the other end, Orlando, record year on points. They look good. A huge and very robust roster that gives Oscar Pareja the ability to do what he wants and plan out each one of these games differently if he pleases. So that's an interesting one for me. And if we go to the West, I like Houston RSL. Yes, RSL has some injury stuff. We don't know if Chicho's going to be there. Can they really put it together? But I think Houston's my dark horse from the West, and I don't want to miss any of those games because I do believe that if Houston plays as good as they've been playing in the second half of the season, watch out for Houston.
You had an interesting thing the other day. Dude dropped a bomb on you. Has to do with that.
What did you say, my bad?
Mute your speaker. Feedback.
Oh, here we go.
You had an interesting conversation today with a dude that's that mug out of. What was that like?
Man, yeah, I think that's been the story of the week, if not. I'm not going to say the year, but it's been a very explosive story here in the Northwest. I was privileged to have Nico open up during a conversation in which we started and triggered by the end of Hispanic Heritage Month, right? And that's what we were going for. And throughout the conversation, I asked about his contracts situation. Was he going to come back? Was he not? And he just opens up. And I thought it was really refreshing how transparent he was and how candid. He wanted to reach out to the fans. I mean, there was a point where he's saying things to me as if he was talking directly towards the fans, right? But all in all, the conclusion of that was that he wasn't coming back in 2024, that the reason why he was leaving wasn't because of the money or the contract or demanding a role, minutes, nothing like that. It was simply about the approach that was taken toward his contract negotiations. Now that we've had not just that initial talk with him, but the team made him available as well as Craig, due to the article that we had. They really wanted to get, I think, another perspective out there and clarify a lot of things, or allow player and GM to clarify a couple of things. But the story never changed. It was all about Nico saying, look, I reached out to the team first. I just wanted to know. He literally says, quote unquote, I didn't want an immediate solution. I didn't want an immediate response. I just wanted to know if the club and the coach who've known me for years wanted me back for the next couple of seasons. That's all I wanted. And I never got that. I got a maybe. I got a, well, you're going to have to prove yourself. We don't really know what you're going to get. And he's in every right to say, look, I've been giving you 110% every game for 7.5 years. What else do you need to see? And this doesn't go into saying that Craig needs to just give him a blank check and say, hey, what do you want? No, it's just about having the conversation with a player who's been committed, loyal, and without a doubt, the best sounder of all time.
What was it like to have mom there?
I'm having some issues hearing you. I'm sorry.
No, you're looping through. So mute something to trim down twice. Okay. What was it like for you to have this kind of a conversation and have someone who has been this piece of Seattle for as long as he has? What was it like for you as a journalist to have this kind of a conversation, and what has the fallout been from the fans after this conversation came to light? Go for it.
I mean, it's been amazing, and I need to figure this out because it happened at one of our shows here. Again, I'm not sure what's going on with the phone or the stream, my settings, but it was amazing. I mean, it's honestly, like I said, a privilege. The fans have taken it in various ways. A lot of them have felt like their star player and someone who's been not just a great player on the pitch, but a member of this community. That he's being done wrong, that he's being left out in the cold. And that was never the intent of the article, but that's how fans have taken it because they see and they feel the love from Nico Lodeiro for what he's done. And he's really made a lot of a storm. There are some that understand the reasoning behind what is an industry standard at time, I guess, if you want to call it that way, to wait till the end of the year to have those real focused negotiations about numbers and all and that's understandable, but a big percentage of the fans just don't want to hear it. They just believe that there should have been an intent, a true conversation given, and that just wasn't there. So there's been a lot of flashback from fans just being really upset at the whole situation.
So when you look at Nico and what he has meant to this franchise, how would you break down how he has become a part of the fabric of everything there in Seattle? I mean, there's a list of a very few dudes who have meant as much to a team as much as Nico has. How would you break down what he has meant to the community in the time that he's been there?
Oh man, I mean it's so much, right? Because I don't think there's ever been a Sounders player that has been at that caliber, at that height level, because where he was coming from, what he does immediately when he comes in, right? I mean, Lodeiro came into a season that was lost, that you thought he was over. And with his performance, he becomes a newcomer of the year. He wins it with assists and goals, and he basically almost by himself takes this team to a final that is won, obviously, as a collective unit, as a team. And yet, throughout the time here, always stopped by to say hi to the fans. It didn't matter what time it was. It didn't matter what he was doing. When he's out and about in the soccer community, because his kids have grown up here and they all play Premier Soccer at Starfire, same location where he trains, he always has times for the fans, always has that ability to provide and give to whether it's his son's team or the community in general. That leadership role has really come through in every sense, not just in the community, but also with the team, with the youngsters, those academy kids that would come up to me and tell me, hey, man, I can't believe Nico just sat there and talked to me about the way I strike the ball. And, guys like Josh Atencio, guys like Leyva, who had a very close relationship with Nicolas Lodeiro, guys like Obed Vargas that are coming up. All these people and all these guys coming through the system were touched, were influenced by Nicolas Lodeiro's words, play, effort, absolutely everything. So quite honestly, beyond the recognition of bringing this team a trophy every year since he was here, except for one year. Seattle's always won a trophy with Nico Lodeiro. Beyond that, it is the guy that was so clear and honest with the love for the city, the organization, and the community that make him for sure in the Mount Rushmore of the Seattle Sounders. But again, I put him in a list of his own because there is nobody that has done what Nico Lodeiro has done here in the city.
How much of a distraction is this going to be, or is this a group of professionals with this series coming up against FC Dallas where it's just like, yeah, it's out there and it's out there in the environment. We're not going to worry about it. Is this a distraction, or is it just going to be pretty much business as usual for Seattle as they take on FCD?
Great question. And I don't think it's a distraction at all. Actually, per his own words, he feels free. He feels released, right? He feels relieved that this is out there, that he can just focus on playing and enjoying Nico's last dance. I mean, that's exactly what it does. And now the group, the team, yes, not only they're professionals, but they knew. I mean, Nico wears his feelings on his sleeves. He knows, and everyone around him knew where things were heading. Perhaps there was some sort of possibility, and players thought that maybe things would get resolved. But at the end of the day, Nico was very open, and I think that this is not a distraction. I think this actually helps the team because it also takes a little bit of weight from Brian Smetzer's shoulders that has not been very comfortable discussing anything surrounding Nico Lodeiro. Quite honestly, and as part of the article that we had for Sounder at Heart, I hope you guys check it out, he kind of missed the mark on really highlighting what Nico has done and the importance of what his departure could be, and putting him in a list of his own, and I don't know if trying to generalize it by telling me, hey, well, I've had guys like Clint and Roman and Zach Scott. Like that's not necessarily what I was looking for. I was looking for him to highlight Nico Lodeiro, and he never quite did that. And even now, after everything came out and after Nico himself said that the door is closed, I'm not coming back, it is definitive. It's not about new negotiations or nothing. We had the time to do that, where I asked Brian, hey, Nico said that he kind of felt like you guys doubted him and you guys didn't really want him, from the coaching staff all the way to the front office. He felt like he's been doubted. And he said, no, I wouldn't do anything differently, because I asked him that as well. So I think it takes some weight off of Brian as well, where he could just focus on the playoffs. He won't get any more of these questions. He can worry about trying to do the best that he can in this Dallas series and then figure out where that goes after that. So I think this, all in all, is not a distraction. It actually helps the squad.
All right, hit the promo for me. I mean, you mentioned the article at Sounder at Heart where you catch up with Nico Lodeiro and drop a bombshell, but what else is going on at the Soccer Bar and Pulso Sports we need to know about?
Well, if I'm in the show, because I got to figure this microphone out, we literally had this exact same issue and we had to mute me every single time last week. We are going to be at Soccer Bar. We are going to talk about these two playoff games. We're going to talk about Nico Lodeiro, get a little bit more in the weeds. If you look at Pulso Sports, you could also find the initial Spanish interview that kind of broke this news in terms of his feelings and what was going on, as well as Nico doing the best he can to express what's going on in English. I mean, he talked in English. He said what he felt. He said what was going on. So I really want you guys to check that out. If you guys haven't, see how serious this guy is, how transparent he is, and make your opinion on it and know who's wrong or who's right, but understand where the player is coming from. And then we also have Brian Smetzer and Craig Weibel talking at Pulso Sports. So check that out.
My friend, as always, it's great to catch up with you on Thursdays to get the Pacific perspective, not just on what's going on the West Coast, but the East Coast as well. And I couldn't let you go without talking about the big bombshell that you got this week, because it means a lot to everybody there in the Pacific Northwest. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll catch up with you next week, my friend, where the playoffs will be advancing that much slower, but we're still going to get advancing. Thanks for hanging out.
Thank you, my friend, and I will get this figured out. I hope that the audio wasn't terrible, at least from my end. But I know I'm making your job harder. That's for sure. So thank you again, and enjoy the rest of the day.